Okay, for some of my upcoming videos, I realize I'm going to need a way to hold a camera and hold it steady enough that I can take and work with both hands and film. Now, I thought about using a tripod, but a tripod's really good for like a straight on view or an angled view and not for a top down view. So what I wanted to do is build a lightweight, easily assemblable box that I can set up and hold my camera in different ways. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some 375 dowel rod that I picked up at Home Depot. It's I think $2 a piece or something like that, and some 3D printed brackets to hold it all together. So I wanted to take and walk you through the process of creating those 3D brackets today here in SolidWorks. And I've clicked on new project and already created a folder for this project. I'm calling it box. And if I double click on that, I can open it up. Now I'm going to use probably one sheet here, but we have a separate folder where everything's not as cluttered for the particular project. So the first thing I'm going to want to do is start creating a 2D sketch like always. So I'm going to hit create sketch and we're going to choose right side here and pick our plane. And working off center, we'll take our circle tool, choose center, and I pre-measured this, and it ranges from 375 up to 395. So I think I'm going to go like 425. Hopefully that'll be enough clearance for a good solid fit that we can slide these all together with later on down the road. And we might have to come back and make another revision if it doesn't work. So in order to do that, I'm just going to type 0.425 and again inches because my sheet's in metric. So that's my inner diameter. This is going to be my clearance for my dowel rod. And then I'm going to pick this and come outwards and kind of think about how much wall thickness I want, because I'm at 425 now, and I think let's leave 50 thousandths of a wall or see what that looks like. So we'll just tape 0.475 inches. Ooh, that doesn't look like enough. Let's 100 thou would be 0.525 inches, and I have two decimals in here, so let's delete one decimal. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So that's 100 thou wall thickness, or 100 thou over on diameter, which gives me 50 thou wall thickness. So we'll do that. And then we can come up here to solids and go to extrude. And again, I like to tilt off so I can kind of see what I'm doing. I'm doing this again by eyeball. Probably not necessarily the best practice here, but it definitely does work. And we'll pull it out. So 25.5 millimeters is 1 inch. I know my rod can't go all the way in. So I probably want to make it a little bit longer. Let's go 35 millimeters. So that'll be a rod. That'll be a tube that the rod can set in. It'll be 35 millimeters long, and let's press OK. Now, I think the next step that I want to do is possibly see if I can highlight this and then use the modify tools to create, and maybe it's the create tools, to kind of do a copy rotate of these in the three directions that I want. So we'll use move copy, and we want to create a copy, and then I can, okay, so I can drag it that way. I don't want to do that. I want to rotate it, and then I guess I will have to, let's cancel this for a minute. I want to try this again with move copy. See if I can select, yeah, set pivot point, and then I want to see if I can select the center of this. Now when we rotate it, does it, well, it doesn't show us anything. All right, so I stopped recording there for a moment, but I reloaded the move tool again after trying a few times, and I got what looks like an XYZ orientation with the chart's initial pivot point. So I can go ahead and pivot the part, but I'm going to have to create a copy of the part first, and then I can pivot this point out by 90 degrees. And that should create the starts of what I want. So we are going to have to hit OK. I'm not going to be able to do another one, but hopefully we'll be able to again select this part, press M, and we got another that wasn't fully done. It seems very hit or miss, and maybe I'm missing something here on whether or not you get one that's lined up perfectly or not. All right, so now this one looks like it's lined up. I did have to use that set point to set it, but now if I set it here, press OK, nothing happens, of course. So let's go ahead. We'll try it again. I now have a good one. We can make our copy and rotate this up 90 degrees. That tool seems kind of funky, and maybe I'm using it wrong. I'm not entirely sure here. I guess only time will tell, and playing with it we'll find out. But we got the general geometry of what we want, which is going to be just a three-sided corner. This will help us create a corner here, but this back end is kind of empty where we merged these three objects in. So let's go create sketch and zoom in here and actually create a sketch on this plane. And I'm going to want to use the arc tool, and I think I'm going to want to use a center point arc. And I say think because sometimes when you do arcs here in this software, it's a little cranky. So we got one that drew really well, and we'll draw our next one. We'll use our line tool, and we'll just create a box here. Now hitting escape, we can then do that. Now I also know that I'm going to need a pivot line, so we'll go ahead and draw a vertical pivot line for doing the rotation of this. So we'll select our box. We have our pivot line here, and we should be able to go to solids and revolve. We'll select that axis here. It wants to cut it. We don't need to necessarily cut. We want to join, and I don't need to go 360. I only need to go 90. And that creates at least a filler. Now these aren't perfect as they join in here. You can tell this piece to this piece is good, and this piece should be better, but then these come in at a little bit. Not perfect. This is kind of nice to these, but we can kind of blend them all in with the fillet tool here in a minute. And for revision 1, without any corner bracing or anything here, I am going to try to print this here. Let's apply those fillets and see what it looks like. So we can select these three and then use our push-pull tool to kind of create fillets. Nothing's working here. So let's do one at a time and see if we can create some fillets in here. And I'm going to go with the biggest fillet I can before it errors out to try to create some of that corner bracing best I can. Now, because we put that first fillet in there, it wants to join these together. Let's see what happens. There we go. And again, I went as large as I could possibly go. That kind of creates a very blended, kind of natural like shape up in here where it has some support between the two of them. Kind of like the aesthetics of how that came out. Now for my box this will be fine, but if we wanted to do something like a 3 printer frame or something where we were going to mount some hard plastic, this might need some alterations. But for now, let's try it, see how it is, 3D print, see what it looks like, and then we can do revision number 2. I anticipate having a few fitment issues as well. So now in order to start the process of 3D printing this, we're going to want to select our entire part, or rather we need to save it first, and we can call it corner. And the location is box, so that should be pretty good here. Let's go ahead and save that. Now we can select the entire part because it's already selected, and we can hit file, and then we can go down and export this. It'll export as corner V1, and we want to select our format as STL and then press export. And that's going to go ahead and export our file. By default, it puts this stuff in our downloads folder. So we'll go ahead now and open up our software for our 3D printer, and I use Prusa Splicer. It's just what I'm comfortable with. I kind of just have some presets in here. I've tweaked a little bit of them, not incredibly much, to be honest with you. I just kind of have something that works. I can tell you it's not the best for, like that it could be, but it definitely works and it gets the job done. So I'm just going to go ahead, drag that corner file in here, and I'm going to go ahead, pick place on bed, and get this placed on the bed in a way that best will create a stable like part without going ahead and having to create brims or anything else. I try to avoid that. And then I'm going to move it up into this corner here and give it a little bit of space outside the corner. And then I'm just going to slice it now. I'm pretty confident in my settings, and I'll tweak them as I go, depending. I'm expecting to have to tweak this part more and do a little bit more 3D printing of this part before we can assemble the box. So we have some G code. I'm going to go ahead, save that on my SD card, 3D print this part. Okay, so I didn't have to go ahead and reprint any revisions of this part, and I was able to go ahead and do the assembly. So here's a picture of the cube fully assembled with the dowels and all glued together. We're going to conclude this video here at this point with the completion of the cube, and make part 2 where we're going to 3D print some crossbars and a camera holder for this cube.